Welcome to the Reddit Family to Us YouTube channel, a place where genuine and inspiring family stories are shared. Here, you'll enjoy unique videos about family life, humorous moments, and meaningful lessons. Let's explore together the stories where love and connection shine through. Join us in creating beautiful memories. Please comment and let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe now so you won't miss the special video launching tomorrow. The day my stepmom's lies shattered my future. How false assault accusations blocked my inheritance and left my dad blind until the truth emerged. At 22, Brian's world was shattered by a betrayal he never saw coming. Raised by his biological mother, Emily, he had always believed that his father, David, cherished him as his true heir. However, after David remarried Cynthia, everything changed. Cynthia, a calculating and ambitious woman, quickly made it clear that her loyalty lay with her own interests, and Brian's inheritance was an obstacle she could not tolerate. Determined to secure her position, Cynthia fabricated a sordid assault allegation against Brian, a crime he never committed, designed solely to tarnish his reputation and block him from the family fortune. The accusation was as shocking as it was calculated, delivered with chilling precision at a time when Brian was most vulnerable. Cynthia claimed that during a minor disagreement, Brian had violently attacked her, a claim so outlandish that it seemed impossible to believe. Yet, in the midst of a fractured family dynamic, David, emotionally distant and overly reliant on Cynthia's account, accepted her story without question. The sudden, false allegation spread like wildfire, isolating Brian from relatives who had once been his staunch supporters, and leaving him branded as a threat to the family's stability. In the weeks that followed, Brian fought desperately to prove his innocence. Every attempt to clear his name was met with skepticism and disdain from those who trusted Cynthia's judgment more than his own word. The scandal not only destroyed his reputation but also stripped him of the future he had long envisioned, a future filled with promise and the legacy of his father's wealth. As David's trust in him evaporated, Brian found himself alone, forced to confront the painful reality that the person who was meant to protect him had turned his back on him. Haunted by the weight of falsehoods and betrayed by the very person he had loved and respected, Brian embarked on a lonely quest for justice. Determined to expose Cynthia's deceit, he began gathering evidence to clear his name and reclaim his rightful inheritance. Amid the turmoil, Brian learned that sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us, leaving scars that challenge our very identity. Now, with his spirit battered yet unbroken, Brian is resolved to fight for the truth and restore the honor that was stolen from him. Following the explosive false allegation, Brian soon discovered that his family environment had been irrevocably transformed into a battlefield of deceit and simmering hostility. After that fateful day, every family gathering, every quiet dinner, and every once warm conversation turned into a minefield of suspicion and resentment. His father, David, who once proudly displayed a picture of their once happy family, now sat silently at the head of the table, his eyes clouded by the weight of Cynthia's manipulation, while Cynthia herself carried an air of self-satisfaction that made every room she entered feel charged with tension. The once supportive presence of his biological mother, Emily, became a beacon of sorrow amid the cold indifference exhibited by the rest of the family, who had uncritically accepted Cynthia's narrative without question. In this fractured household, the pleasant memories of his childhood were replaced by whispered conversations and furtive glances exchanged between relatives, all of whom seemed to conspire in maintaining the false image of a perfect family. Even the casual banter that once filled family reunions was now punctuated by long, uncomfortable silences, as if everyone was waiting for the next inevitable outburst. Brian, who had grown up with a deep sense of belonging and security, now found himself isolated, the target of both overt cruelty and subtle exclusion. His every attempt to reach out or defend himself was met with dismissive shrugs and forced smiles, while the twins, Sophie and Chloe, delighted in echoing their mother's cutting remarks, further isolating him in a place he had once called home. At school reunions and holiday celebrations, the air was thick with unspoken accusations, and even David's well-meaning comments were laced with a bitter undertone that left Brian questioning his worth. The environment was not just emotionally toxic, it was a relentless assault on his identity, leaving him with deep-seated scars of betrayal and abandonment. As Cynthia's influence grew stronger, the family's dynamics shifted dramatically. Every shared meal became a reminder of his exclusion. Every festive occasion a painful reminder that he was no longer seen as a beloved son, but rather as an interloper whose existence threatened the carefully constructed narrative of Cynthia's supremacy. In this chaotic, hostile atmosphere, Brian's dreams of reconciliation and familial unity seemed to fade into a distant, unattainable memory, and the once vibrant tapestry of his family life was now marred by the dark, unyielding stain of deception and isolation. In the midst of the disintegrated family environment that had already shattered Brian's once hopeful outlook, the relentless emotional abuse from Cynthia escalated into a daily torment that left him questioning every aspect of his self-worth. Every morning, as he trudged through a house charged with tension and silent judgment, Cynthia would seize every opportunity to ridicule him, her words dripping with sarcasm and cruelty. At the dinner table, while her twin daughters, Sophie and Chloe, exchanged giggles and knowing looks, Cynthia would single Brian out with cutting remarks about his appearance and demeanor, as if his very existence was an affront to her carefully curated family image. In private moments, when Brian sought comfort or tried to discuss his feelings, her voice would drop to a venomous whisper, delivering stinging critiques that reduced his hopes to smoldering embers. Her abuse was methodical and pervasive. Cynthia not only mocked his physical traits, calling him too weak and unworthy, but she also controlled the smallest details of his life. She would deliberately deny him full meals, ensuring he was left hungry at the end of each day, a cruel echo of the neglect that filled his heart. Each time he entered a room, he was met with icy glares and dismissive comments, as if he were invisible, unimportant, and utterly undeserving of love or respect. Even during family gatherings, when laughter should have been shared, Brian found himself isolated in a sea of contempt, the only target of Cynthia's relentless jabs, which were always designed to underscore the favoritism lavished upon Sophie and Chloe. This constant barrage of verbal assaults and microaggressions left Brian feeling as if he were slowly disintegrating from the inside out. Every cruel remark was a fresh wound, deepening the scars of betrayal and isolation that had been laid during those tumultuous years. With every passing day, he grew more determined to reclaim his dignity and prove that his worth was not defined by Cynthia's twisted view of him. Yet, as the abuse continued unabated, it became painfully clear that the home he once knew was now a battleground, where his identity was being stripped away piece by piece. In this dark environment of demeaning control and calculated neglect, Brian's resolve began to harden, a silent promise that one day, he would rise above the cruelty, reclaim his life, and finally expose the toxic legacy that had been imposed upon him. In the midst of the daily torment that had already worn Brian down, the ultimate betrayal came from the very person he had once trusted most, his father, David. Despite witnessing Cynthia's relentless emotional abuse firsthand, every cruel remark and every dismissive glance aimed at Brian, David stubbornly refused to see the truth. Instead of offering the protection and understanding that a father should, he repeatedly sided with Cynthia, dismissing Brian's pleas as mere overreactions, and even going so far as to cut him off entirely from the family's support and wealth. This betrayal was not only a crushing blow to Brian's self-esteem but also a betrayal of the unconditional love he had once believed defined their father-son relationship. Every time Brian attempted to voice his anguish or share the painful details of Cynthia's demeaning behavior, how she would isolate him at dinner tables, deny him proper meals, and ridicule him in front of the entire family, David would interject with a disarming smile and a vague comment about just easing, as if the repeated humiliation were nothing more than harmless banter. His refusal to acknowledge the severity of Cynthia's actions deepened Brian's sense of isolation, leaving him feeling abandoned and unworthy, while also fueling a growing resentment towards a father who seemed more invested in maintaining Cynthia's narrative than in protecting his own son. Even in moments when Brian tried to show David the damning evidence of Cynthia's cruelty, text messages, recorded conversations, and the subtle yet undeniable patterns of emotional abuse, David's response was invariably dismissive. He brushed off Brian's concerns with platitudes that stung more than they soothed, such as "you're overreacting, and that's just how families are." This constant invalidation, coming from the very person who was supposed to be his pillar of support, left Brian grappling with a profound sense of betrayal, as though the home he once thought was a safe haven had become a prison built on lies and deceit. With each passing day, as the gap between his father's expectations and the harsh reality of his abuse widened, Brian's trust in his family eroded further, leaving him to wonder if love could ever truly exist in a place where loyalty was so easily compromised. Ultimately, this betrayal by his father not only intensified the emotional scars inflicted by Cynthia's abuse but also forced Brian to confront the painful realization that the very foundation of his identity had been shattered by those who were meant to nurture it. After years of silent suffering and bitter isolation, the truth finally emerged, shattering the dark hold that Cynthia's deceit had over our family. Brian had spent countless nights piecing together evidence, text messages, voice recordings, and subtle witness accounts, that irrefutably proved his innocence and exposed Cynthia's elaborate fabrications. When his father, David, finally confronted the mountain of proof, the realization hit him like a tidal wave. He had been blinded by Cynthia's lies, and in his misplaced trust, he had abandoned his only son. In a long, painful confrontation that unfolded during a tense family meeting, David's remorse was laid bare. His voice trembled with regret as he admitted that he had erred terribly by believing Cynthia's false accusations without a shred of doubt. Yet, as he begged for forgiveness and a chance to rebuild what had been lost, Brian's wounded heart could no longer bear the weight of years spent in betrayal. The revelation sent shockwaves through the entire household, where once warm bonds now lay in ruins. Cynthia's carefully constructed narrative disintegrated under the harsh light of truth, exposing not only her cruelty but also the systemic favoritism that had long marginalized Brian. Amid bitter arguments and tearful confessions, the fragile veneer of family unity crumbled, leaving behind only raw emotion and shattered trust. Extended relatives, who had once unconditionally supported David's decisions, now found themselves questioning the integrity of the man they had admired. Every whispered word, every accusing glance, and every anguished tear spoke volumes of the deep scars that had been inflicted. Faced with the irreversible damage, Brian made a choice that would forever alter his life. Determined to reclaim his dignity and secure a future free from the toxic legacy of deception, he resolved to sever all ties with the father who had failed him so profoundly. In a final act of defiance, he packed his belongings and embarked on a solitary journey toward healing, leaving behind a family fractured by betrayal. Though David's remorse and desperate pleas for reconciliation echoed in the background, Brian understood that forgiveness was a luxury he could no longer afford. The aftermath of this explosive revelation was far-reaching, with every relationship in the family irreversibly altered. As Brian stepped into a new chapter of self-reclamation, the haunting memories of the past served as a constant reminder that truth, once uncovered, reshapes the very foundation of one's identity, leaving scars that may never fully heal, but also forging a strength that propels one forward into a brighter, unburdened future. Thank you for watching this intense and emotional journey unfold. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share your experiences, opinions, or advice in the comments below. Your feedback is invaluable, and it helps us learn from each other's perspectives. Don't hesitate to join the conversation, whether you agree or have a different viewpoint. Let's continue this profound discussion together. Trong Ten Yai. Thank you for watching this story unfold. I'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, and opinions. Please share your feedback in the comments below. Your insights matter and help create a supportive community where every voice is valued. Whether you agree or have a different perspective, I welcome your input. Let's continue the conversation and support one another through these challenging family dynamics. Your comments make all the difference.